Hey, soccer fans. Nick Pateras here for the Sons of a Pitch, an American soccer podcast. Thanks for coming back and joining us as we continue our team previews. I know, Mike, you spent a lot of time putting some notes together on the reigning Western Conference champion and Supporters Shield winner, LAFC. So kick us off with who has to be the early MLS Cup favorite, LAFC.
Absolutely. LAFC, not a ton of movement this offseason. And why would you when you are the Supporters Shield champions and had a record-setting point total season? This team was fantastic and just came up just a little bit short against Seattle in the playoffs there. Players in for LAFC, forward Danny Musovski, a free transfer. Also, midfielder Francisco Janela, a transfer from Montevideo Wanderers. This kid is a young and up-and-coming, looks like he's got some great talent. Midfielder Jose Cifuentes from America de Quito. Also, goalkeeper Kenneth Vermeer, a transfer from Feyenoord. And midfielder Bryce Duke, the homegrown player. Players out. Lee Win is gone through the expansion draft. Goalkeeper Philip Ijmadu, his loan is expired. Defense, Lamar Batista, option declined. Javi Perez, Peter Lee Vassell, both had their options declined. Steven Beitashour, out of contract. The solid right back, out of contract. Still sits out of contract, I believe, as a free agent. Don't think anybody's signed him yet. Forward, Rodolfo Zelaya, mutually agreed to part ways. And goalkeeper Tyler Miller, also out of contract, who ended up going over to Minnesota United. Those are the players in and out for LAFC. Some really good talent in, not a lot of talent out, to be honest with you. Beitashour, it hurts, but that guy, he's getting older. As well, Zelaya didn't really pan out so much for LAFC over the time that he was there. Tyler Miller definitely hurts, but a lot of good talent coming in. Nick, what are your thoughts on those guys?
Yeah, you hit it on the head that they have a lot more a lot of good talent coming in to kind of replace some of these guys that are departed. Some of the household MLS names like Lee Win and Steven Beitashour, Tyler Miller especially, is going to hurt kind of their defense a little bit. But you bring in Yanela, you bring in Cifuentes, you bring in Bryce Duke, a homegrown. Those three guys, I imagine they're going to get a lot of opportunity under Bob Bradley because you got an LAFC team who is playing in the CONCACAF Champions League, who is going to be playing and looking to win the U.S. Open Cup, who is going to be playing in all sorts of Liga MX type of exhibition friendlies as well. So LAFC is going to have a lot of games this year where these incoming midfielders are going to take the place of that Lee Win, where you see him come in maybe in the 60th, 70th minute and just try to spark the offense a little bit. Or if they're winning, Lee Win was really good at maintaining possession and kind of running out the game, running out the clock. So look for those midfielders to kind of have that same kind of role of Lee Win and make up for that loss of talent there. So that's kind of my first big thing that I noticed as far as players in and out. I'm not exactly sure who they're going to end up as their new goalkeeper. I know you have Vermeer in your projected starting 11, but I don't know how much. Yeah, it's if they. I guess if they're bringing him in from Feyenoord, then yeah. But we'll see how he fits in and adjusts to life in the MLS. Probably a little easier to transition if you're a goalkeeper rather than a field player. But hopefully there's not too much of a drop off at that position for them. We'll see if Beitashour comes back to the league. I mean, he had a pretty good couple seasons with LAFC recently. We'll see if he gets picked up somewhere, maybe as kind of that 23rd man depth piece. But hey, wish him well. He has definitely been fun to watch, and whatever team he's played for, he's produced. So it's been fun to watch Beitashour's career, and maybe we can get a few more seasons out of him. But that's kind of my overarching big picture type take on the LAFC roster. Like you said when you opened it, didn't have to do much. They were head and shoulders above the rest of the league last season.
Absolutely. Now let's talk a little bit about the designated players. Who else doesn't really need an introduction? Carlos Vela, league MVP last year. Absolutely record-setting year. Most goals in the history of the league in a season. Um, the guy's unbelievable. By far the best player in MLS right now. They're the new signings that have come in. Yeah, there's some decent names that have come in, a.k.a. Chicharito across town out in the suburbs there in Carson. But no, not even close. Right now, Carlos Vela is the best player in MLS, hands down, in my opinion. What do you think, Nick? I mean, do you think, is he going to get better? Do we think maybe a little bit of regression because that season was so good? What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't want to say anything bad about Carlos Vela because I'm afraid Bob Bradley might show up and try to start a fight with me or throw some insults my way or if you remember how curt he was with some interviewers over the whole Carlos Vela, has he finally proven himself questions from last season. It's going to be hard for Vela to improve on the season he had last year, MVP, Golden Boot, Supporter Shield, goals. Like, he did everything for LAFC. He's got to stay healthy. I think he's going to have to get other players involved. He's going to probably have a drop in goals scored just because opposing defenses have another year of film on him, and maybe teams can scheme a little bit to try to take away that left foot finally. I mean, for a guy who everyone knows he's trying to get a shot with his left foot, they can't defend it. They keep biting on the deep to the right. It drives me nuts. It drives me nuts as a guy who used to play defense, that just plant on his left foot. Let him shoot with the right foot. See what happens. If he scores with his right foot, good for him. The fact that he's so reliant on his left foot, if the MLS defenders get any better, that could be a downfall for Vela. But I'm nitpicking here because the guy has been one of the best players in the MLS over the last couple seasons. So if anything, as a fan, he's fun to watch. He can do so many different things when the ball is at his feet. As far as some of their other DPs, we got Diego Rossi and Brian Rodriguez, both guys who, again, can create and really find Vela in the space. Guys who, if Vela can draw 2 or 3 defenders, can also create goal-scoring opportunities for them. They really fit well within the roster and within what Bradley wants to do with them. So I could see them having an expanded role, probably putting up some better numbers this year individually as we see someone like Vela maybe take a step back, just because how do you go from having a record-setting year without a regression the next? What do you think about Rossi and Rodriguez?
Yes, my biggest question for Rossi is how long is he going to be here? That, I think, is, this guy has had 2 unbelievable seasons for LAFC. The talent is there. He's a great player. There's already been rumors that, teams like Fiorentina have been interested in the past. He definitely is going to have opportunity overseas, especially in Europe. How long is he going to stay? I mean, this guy has got, you look back in his stats in 2 seasons, LAFC in 2018, 12 goals and 9 assists. Last year, 16 goals and 7 assists. He's always in the right spots. This guy plays he's a great player overall, and was, I wouldn't say an unknown coming into the league. People knew about him, but when you're picking up a young South American as a young DP from the Uruguayan Primera Division, not a lot of people are going to be up on this guy. And he's come in and done extremely well. I think it'll continue. And to me, the only question is, when does LAFC sell him to get a huge payday out of this guy? Hopefully not until the end of the season. Like, I'd hate to see them lose this guy in the middle of the year. I would rather see it, in the January window of next season, because he's not going anywhere this year. But great player in Diego Rossi. Also, the other DP, Brian Rodriguez, hasn't, he came in towards the end of last season, didn't do much. I think you took him some time to adjust, and I'll give him that. You come into a team with, these guys that are putting in goals left and right, like Rossi, like Vela, and you're coming from South America to a brand new, it's totally different now from where he came from. So that adjustment period is definitely real. Some guys have it, some guys don't. But I think he had his adjustment period towards the end of last season, and I think he'll do much better this season. but I'm not really expecting him to, put up Diego Rossi type numbers, but definitely going to see him improve.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And for those of you who follow international soccer, Uruguay always has a very respectable team, especially having to play against Brazil, Argentina, every international competition. So to see this young player, 19 years old, already have a few caps with the Uruguayan national team, already have a few goals in their international friendlies. I mean, this guy's only going to get better. So keep an eye on Brian Rodriguez to have a few highlight reels this season with LAFC. So, Mike, we got to talk about the DPs. We got to talk about the rosters. Let's flip it around a little. Who are the young players that you think are going to break out for LAFC this season?
Yes, first on the list, I think if you can qualify a DP under the breakout youngster category, that would be Brian Rodriguez. I noted some good conversations we were having on Reddit that, a lot of fans were thinking breakout youngster, Brian Rodriguez. And I agree. As I spoke to just a second ago, I think he's going to do much better this year than he did last year and really break out for this team. And he has the potential to just, really turn this team into an absolute juggernaut that it was, like, to the next level of juggernaut, because they're already a juggernaut from what they did last season. So, he could have a really good year. Another one also, Diego Palacios, Cheeky Palacios, transferred from at the end of last season from kind of similar to Brian Rodriguez, right? He can play left back or left wing. I expect to see him take over for Jordan Harvey, right? Probably in the first few months of the season. And, it's not going to take him long. And he's definitely going to get minutes behind Jordan Harvey at left back, just because you've got a guy, I think Harvey's 36 years old. There's no way he's playing, as you say, Champions League, full regular season in MLS, U.S. Open Cup, Leagues Cup, if they're even in it. I can't even remember what that format of that crazy little tournament is.
Yeah.
But there's so many other games that there's no way the guy's going to be able to play all season. So he's going to get some opportunities there. And everybody seems to be pretty high on him. He's Ecuadorian. I think he'll be pretty good. And some other guys as well that could kind of break out. What do you think, Nick?
Mike, there's a few other names that you've thrown here on the notes. Adrian Perez, Cifuentes. I mean, those are big off-season targets for them. With this LAFC team, coached by Bob Bradley, with players like Vela, Rossi, and Rodriguez, as well as some of their other more domestic-based players, like a young guy can really learn a lot fast. So it wouldn't surprise me to see a number of young, talented players break out with LAFC. And like we said, lots of games this year for them to do that. I think kind of moving through our review here and our preview of LAFC, as far as the floor and the ceiling, Mike, it's pretty obvious that when win they win at least the double Supporter Shield MLS Cup. Maybe they're the first MLS team to win the CONCACAF Champions League. That's got to be a ceiling. That's pretty easy. And I think the floor for this team, even if they have a terrible year, they're still making the playoffs. Maybe they end up fourth or fifth and potentially have an away game to start. But I just think they're too talented. So with that, give me your projected starting lineup, and then we can kind of see how they look on paper, if it kind of matches up to what we remember about LAFC.
Yeah, so going with the 4-3-3 is kind of what they were playing towards the end of the season last season. Their last matchup against Seattle, they came out in that 4-3-3, played almost all of their games in 4-3-3. I think Vermeer takes that starting goalkeeper spot. A guy comes over from Feyenoord, he's not coming over to be a bench warmer. Jordan Harvey at left back, I think he'll eventually get replaced, but right now I think they'll have him kind of start. He's that starting guy right now. Segura and Zimmerman are the center backs. Tristan Blackman as right back. I think with Beitashour moving on, Blackman kind of broke out last season. There was a lot of talk about him being on that breakout youngsters list. I think he solidifies himself in that right back position. I'm going to go kind of a little crazy on this one. I think instead of Latif Blessing, I'm going to go with Francisco Janela, the new signing, the young Uruguayan, to start in that midfield with Atuesta and Mark Anthony Kaye. Then the three up front, Diego Rossi, Vela, and Rodriguez. No question on those three. That is what I see in that starting 11, plus the depth that they have is very, very exciting. You know, when you start talking about some of these young signings like Cifuentes that they brought in and Palacios. I mean, these guys, the talent is just unreal on this squad. So I agree 100% with your predictions. I think a ceiling is probably even a domestic treble. I think this team could do it all, win Supporter Shield just because of the depth that they have, and win Open Cup. It's hard to do. Only one team has ever done that, but I think that could be the ceiling for this club if Vela doesn't regress. Floor, again, they're going to get a home playoff game. This team is too strong. They've got way too much talent. I don't see them, even with a bunch of injuries, I can't see this team falling apart and even getting an away playoff game. So those are my thoughts on that. Most important player, can you go anywhere else other than Carlos Vela, who was the reigning MVP of the league? I can't. To me, he's the most important player.
Well, for the sake of argument, and maybe not even for the sake of argument, like you had a lot of guys saying that Atuesta last season was even more important than Vela. Like Vela was there to score the goals, but it was Atuesta that was there to kind of feed him, to set things up, to get the other players involved. So I think there's an argument to be made for Atuesta, but you're right. It's hard to say Carlos Vela isn't their most important player.
Yep, absolutely. The first game for LAFC is going to be in the CONCACAF Champions League. They are heading down to Mexico on February 18th to take on Club Leon. I think this is going to be one of the better matchups in CCL in that first round. You got Liga MX. They were the lucky MLS side to draw a Liga MX team. So it's going to be interesting to see how they treat this tournament. Of course, they're going to say all the right things. They're going for it. Do you think Bob Bradley is really prioritizing this as, go after it, we're going to win this championship kind of thing? Or is this kind of a, hey, let's use this as preseason. Let's see how we do. If we do well and we have a chance and we find ourselves in the semis, go for it. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's hard to get in Bob Bradley's head, and I don't know if I'd want to. It sounds like a scary place. But if it were me, I would be going for this. Last year, you already set every record, and you came away with one trophy. This year, I would go for CCL, win that, then make the playoffs, because you can kind of manage your squad's minutes based on how well you're doing. And we talked about the talent, the depth they have. Make the playoffs, get a top 4 seed, and then go for MLS Cup. It's extremely hard to repeat as a Shield winner. It's extremely hard to continue at that pace that they had last season, a record-setting pace, 85 goals, like over 2 points per game average. I think it would be a drain on the club and just an unrealistic expectation to try to do that again. They've already done it. They've already proven to be the best regular season team in MLS history. So go win a couple trophies now and show everyone that it's not a fluke, that you can win the big games. That if it were me, that's what I would do, Mike.
All right, I got to agree with you there. I think to be the first MLS team to win CCL is going to be something that all these teams have to be shooting for. And I'm talking about every team that goes into this tournament, in previous seasons, in future seasons. That's kind of the big monkey that's left, right? So I say go for it. They've got the talent. Should be excited. I'm really excited about it because that's probably one of the first games that we're going to watch all year long is going to be that matchup. And it's going to be a hell of a matchup. So with that pretty much wraps up our LAFC preview. Do you have any other news and notes on LAFC you want to give up?
Nothing right now, but probably still more to come before that first game. So keep your eyes on the wire, keep your eyes on the web, keep your eyes on the Twitters, and we'll fill everyone in as we continue this off season.